So this video is going to be on procedures and functions, and this time I'm looking at 3.1.4 of the COMP2 GCSE Computer Science specification. Mainly looking at this idea, so know when the use of a procedure or function would make sense and would simplify the coded solution. But we're pretty much touching on kind of every criterion in this section. So we're going to look at parameters, return types, difference between procedures and functions, and we're going to talk about both user-defined functions and built-in functions. So the example program I'm going to be using is this one. Again, it's just a kind of quiz game where the user has the option to either set the questions or answer the questions. So we have a look at how this works. So if I choose 1 from the main menu, it asks me to ask a question, set the question. So what is 2 plus 2? Confirms, and then the answer is 4. Yes. And I could choose to either go back to the main menu or keep setting questions. So I'm going to press no. Ask another question. What is 6 times 5? Yes. 30. Yes. So now I'm going to go back to the main menu by pressing Y. Takes me back to the main menu, and at this point if I press 2 it goes into the other mode, and then what it does is it randomly selects the questions, and you kind of keep doing them, and it will keep kind of cycling through the questions it has stored in it until you answer one right, and once it answers it correctly it kind of removes it from the list, and this should keep going until the program runs out of questions, or the other option is that you kind of get more than 10 points. So what I'm hoping to teach you at the moment is that this program in its current form is a badly written program. Okay? There's several reasons for this. It's quite hard to understand. I haven't put any comments on. The only kind of thing I've done for readability is perhaps naming my variables sensible names and spacing things out. But you can see that there's quite a lot of repetition. These two blocks look very similar, don't they? And another thing, especially in Python, that's kind of frowned upon is this overuse of indentation. So if you have lots and lots of nested indentation, there's generally a better way to do this. So what I'm going to teach you is how to kind of think about creating a computer program in a different way using what's called a modular approach, and splitting it up into a series of different procedures and functions that are called from a main loop. And this is really kind of the higher level stuff when it comes to programming. So I'm going to think, first of all, I'm going to think about my program and think about its actions. What does it need to do? Okay, so I can already see some of these things. So display a main menu, allow the user to choose, check their choice is okay. Set questions, so the user needs to set the question, set the answer, make sure each is okay. Play the quiz, which is answering the questions. What does the program need to do in this kind of section? So it needs to do things like ask, pick a random question, ask question, get user's answer, check if answer correct, and display message. Display messages. Okay, so I'm going to kind of have a look now at breaking down the problem into these steps, and for each one I'm going to be defining a function. Starting off with the main menu function. I'm using the word function, but this is actually going to be a procedure. So I'll explain what the difference is in a second. So a user-defined function in Python is kind of created with this keyword def, followed by the name of your function or procedure, and then the brackets. Okay, so if something is coming into the function, as in if data is coming in, then this is what comes here, and it becomes the parameter of the function. The other bit is if something needs to come out of the function, you use this keyword return, but if a function doesn't have a return value, then technically what it's doing is a procedure. Okay, so at the moment I'm going to kind of keep my code down here, and my old code, and kind of write the new code above here. So now I'm just going to show the main loop. And again, a similar thing, so I'm going to say while, so I'm still going to use this kind of syntax, so end program is false, while not end program. And what are we doing in the loop? So each time we go around, we're going to display the main menu. Okay, so this shows how I'm calling the first user-defined function, well, technically a procedure. A good practice here is to kind of use what's called a doc string to describe what each function or procedure does. So this one is displays the main menu options to the user. Okay, so now I'm going to go on to my next thing, which is allow the user to choose. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another function, this time called getChoice. So getChoice again isn't going to have a parameter. So I think the correct term is when you're calling a function, if you write something in the brackets, it's referred to as argument. But when it comes into the function, if needed, it's called a parameter. So in the exam syllabus, they mostly use this word parameter, but we're not going to worry about that yet because getChoice doesn't need any data coming into it. Okay. So what getChoice is doing is it's asking the user to input a choice, and we're just going to use a little data validation loop that says while choice not in, and then my list of valid options, which is 1, 2, and 3. So while the choice is not in the list of valid options, what we need to ask them to do is re-enter it. So not a valid option, please re-choose. Okay, and then once this loop has ended, what this must mean is that the choice has been validated to be okay. So therefore what we can do is get the data back out of the function. So because getChoice is something that needs to give back the data to the main loop, what we're going to need to do is use this return keyword. So this changes the way that when I call the function, I don't simply just call it by specifying the function's name, I now need to assign it something. So what this means is the variable choice gets its value as a result of the getChoice function. Okay? So this is exactly the same as when you call built-in functions. So for example, input. Someone's written some code somewhere that kind of defines what input should do, and that the result of input is a return statement. And then this is what you're doing when you do question equals input. Okay, it's exactly the same with the other functions I've used, so bool and len and list. They all are built-in functions that return a value, which is why you assign. Okay. On the other hand, print is an example of a procedure. So the data ends at print as far as you're concerned, and so this is why we never, and this will lead to lots of problems, we never assign a call to print to anything. Okay. Alright, so carry on with getChoice. So we've got the main menu, we've got getChoice, and now in our main loop we have some data, so we have the choice. So we can now kind of stack up our options. So if choice is 1, we're going to do something. Until I kind of write what we're going to do, I'm going to use this keyword pass. This is just a kind of temporary way of allowing you to kind of keep writing your code until you've finished the program. So else, then therefore, because we've validated it must be 1, 2, or 3, I can now just use else for efficiency. I don't need to use another elif. And I know what option 3 is, it's to quit, so I'm going to say see you later, and the thing that's going to make the main loop be able to exit is this boolean variable here, end program, so I just need to make end program become true. Okay, so at this point I've written a lot of code here without doing any testing. I don't advise that's common practice. Generally, unless you're very confident, you should be kind of writing, not saying that I am very confident, but you should be writing small parts of code and running to test what you've done. So I've now just kind of disabled the rest of the program, so I'm going to test my code and fix any bugs that it encounters so far. Okay, so what it should do is display the main menu, allow me to choose an option from the main menu, check that the option is a valid option, and then allow the program to quit, but otherwise just keep repeating. Okay, let's see if it does that. So press 1, keeps repeating, this is good. So an invalid option tells me that I have to pick something that's valid. So now let's try 2. Okay, good. So 2 doesn't trigger anything. This is because all that's inside the conditional statement here is this pass statement, which means kind of skip this. But the one bit of the main menu that has been implemented is the option to quit. So this should say see you later, and then that quits the program. Alright, so now let's have a think about filling in these calls to functions from the main menu. So choice 1 is going to be the set questions mode. Okay, so I'm going to call a function called set questions, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my list of questions, and I'm going to initialize my list of questions just like I've done here. Okay, so questions is a list, and I'm also going to get my answers as well. Questions a list, and answers is a list. And what we're going to do to set questions is they need to take in questions and answers, and they're also going to return the value. Set questions is also going to return the values that I need for questions and answers. So this is a true function, so something that takes some data in, processes it. In this case, we're going to add new items to the lists, and then it's going to return the function and rewrite what is in the main loop. So I'm now writing set questions, the function. So again, the parameters here must match the arguments that you've specified when you called the function. So it's taking 2 things, questions and answers. And now I'm going to think about what needs to happen. So there's a couple of different things. So I need to check that the user has finished, that the user still wants to keep entering the new questions. So I'm going to again still use the same format. So end questions is false. I'm going to say while not end questions. Just use pass for now, and then once we've finished, what we can do is return questions and answers. So let's have a look here. So another thing I commented on at the start was how similar these 2 blocks of code are. Okay, so if you see that you're following the same pattern, then there's always a better way of writing the code normally. So the idea is that you should be using iteration or generalization, or putting this, encapsulating this section of code inside a function to make it reusable. So this is exactly what I'm going to do. I've realized here that question OK and answer OK, one is just simply for the question, one is for the answer, but they are doing the same thing. So what I'm going to do is get the question, and I'm going to create a function called getQuestion. Oops, shouldn't have put a code on there. And I'm going to do answer, and I'm going to do a function called getAnswer. So I'm going to worry about those in a second. And then what I'm going to do is, hold on 1 second. So getAnswer, for the person to know what answer to put in, they're going to need to be told or reminded of the question. So this is why I'm going to pass question into my getAnswer function. So the next thing I'm going to do is, so if I have the question and I have the answer, the last thing is just to check whether they want to keep going. So enter Y to stop adding questions or anything else to continue. And I'm just going to say if Y in input dot lower. So generally I won't have kind of demonstrated writing code like that before, but don't worry too much, it's just for the kind of benefit of this demonstration, or purpose of this demonstration. So I'm going to say if they do enter Y, then what we need to do is set enter questions to true. And the other thing is each time we get a question and we've confirmed the question is going to be okay and the answer is going to be okay, so that's what's going to be inside these functions, we need to add them to the list. So questions.append question and answer.append answers. So variable names for the list should always be plural because they're multiple items. So now I'm going to think about writing my getQuestion function, and I'm then going to write my getAnswer function. what I've forgotten to do is to add my doc strings, so I'm just going to put this in now. So allows the user to choose from the main menu and validates that their choice is okay. So again, we just use these this multi-line string syntax. Allows the user to input a question and confirms they are happy with it and that it's not blank. Not blank before continuing. And then, as I said, the answer function, get answer function, is going to be, I did say that I was going to generalize this. This is something that I forgot. So I'm going to call this get text, and I'm going to type in a thing. I'm going to get a thing called text type. Input a question or answer. So I don't need two separate functions. That's what I was talking about before. So I'm just going to call it get text. Get text. The idea is that the first argument is going to be, first one is we're asking for the question, and the second one we're asking for the answer, but we do need the question. So question, I'm just going to use what's called a keyword argument here. Again, don't worry about this too much, but I'm just going to set question to none. The reason I'm doing this is because when the getText function is used to generate the question, obviously we don't know the question, so I can't pass it in. So that kind of avoids any sort of name error or scope error here. But when I want to get the answer, I need to remind the user of the question. So therefore, what I'm going to do is have to have a way to pass the question into the function. Right, okay, and at the end we're going to return text, and then I'm going to think about what needs to be inside getText. So I'm going to go back to my code from down here and kind of copy the format and then think about how we can change it a little bit. So inside getText, what I'm going to do is first of all sort out the indentation. So rather than using the words question or answer, obviously now I'm going to need to refer to a general term, so that's why I'm using the word text. Just again, to remind you, this is because getText is going to deal with the action of getting the question, but also the answer, the action of getting the answer. Obviously, this one, text OK. So again, a validation variable, many programmers would probably stick to using booleans. In this case, I've chosen to use a string. This is to check whether they enter Y. I just found it a bit easier. And then what else I need to do here is use my text type variable. So I can't refer to question because we need to kind of at some point say question and some point say answer. So I'm going to need to put another thing here and just format that in. So format text type, so sometimes it says enter the question, sometimes it says enter the answer, and add it here as well, text type, and also here as well, format text type. Don't need to append, I'm doing that inside set questions. So let's have a look at this. So what this function is doing is setting text to blank and also a variable called text OK to blank. Until text OK has a value of Y, or hold on, that's not right, or text is not equal to blank, okay, then hold on, that should be and. I need to get my Boolean operation right. So we need the answer we need them to confirm that it's okay, and also for the text not to be blank. Yeah, that's right. So if the text is blank, the text is not equal to blank, we ask them to confirm, and this is where we get the value of text OK. But if it is blank, then we just need to tell them that that is the case. Right, so now hopefully question should be able to get the text, and also answer should be able to get the text from the same function, because we've generalized it. So I've put these two sections of code that looked very similar, and I've generalized them into one function. Then hopefully once we have the question and answer variable, we will append to the questions list, append to the answers list, and then hopefully what we'll do is be able to allow the user to choose to end the loop, to stop adding questions, return the question and the answers list back to the main method. So at this point, I think, because this video has been quite long now, I'm not going to show you the other mode of the program, which is randomly selecting the answers, just to prove that this has worked. At this point, if they choose 2 from the main menu, I'm just going to print both lists. So, as I said, once again, I've spent a long time writing code without testing. This is not what you should do. You should write a little bit of code, maybe 1 or 2 lines, and test it to avoid syntax errors. So I'm going to run this code now and see what it does. Okay, surprise, surprise, I have a syntax error. So let's see if I can see what it is. Okay, I've missed a bracket here. Let's try again. Okay, so let's run the program and let's have a look at seeing if it's behaving the way that I want it to. So press 1. This should call the set questions function. So we're here, we're inside this end questions loop. It's interesting that it's jumped straight to this bit. So I've obviously got an issue here that it's called the getText function, but the loop inside the getText function has not been able to start. So let's have a loop. So, okay, so let me take that back. I did need that to be an OR statement. Boolean logic, when thinking about those compound conditions, it's often a very difficult thing to master. I still have problems with it. So let's go, enter the question. Good. So now we've started the main loop. So let me have a look. So if I leave the question blank, it should check that. Good, so that's working. Let's enter a question. So who is the president of the USA? Good. And then I confirm. So if I press no, it'll ask me to re-enter, which is the expected behavior. Who is the president of the USA? Press Y this time. Good. Now it wants me to do the answer. Good. So we see. So now at this point I'm gonna add one more question. So press no. Can you see now we have the getText function that generalized the action of getting the question and getting the answer is working. So although they're 2 different things, they're both using the same function, and we're passing in what type of text to get, and therefore it's we're still having the same effect as the original solution, which had the 2 whole ugly blocks of code pretty much doing the same thing. So let's enter the question here. So who is the, I can't think of a question. What colour is the sky? Okay, so again, I'm going to confirm. So I'm going to press blue. I'm going to confirm. I'm going to press yes because I want to stop asking questions. Remember, so I didn't get around to implementing this the quiz mode, so the answering questions. But let's just see if it works. So press 2. And it should have been able to print colours. Oh, we've got a slight mistake there. Let's just fix that. Rather than it printing, let me have a look at that question. Okay, so I've returned question rather than questions. Okay, so I'm not going to go through that and test it again, but basically it only returned the last question because I forgot to put the S there and I didn't return the list. But we can see that we're getting the data out of the functions. So, what has this video all been about? So I'm hoping that you can see that this was the original solution. It was confusing, it was hard to read, it was repetitive, it wasn't very clever or intuitive. Okay, and what we've done now is I've reduced the indentation. I've made it clear that we can see what each section of the code is handling. So this has many advantages in terms of efficiency. So if someone else has to maintain your program, it's a lot easier for them to do. So organizes the setting of questions and answers. Okay, and this is the main loop, and it's just much more easier to read. So what we've learned through this is if you call a function that doesn't return a value, it's not actually a function. What it is a procedure. let me write some notes. Procedure, a function that doesn't return a value. Return what comes out of the function assigned to call of the function. Call where the function is referred to in order to execute. So the idea is that when I call my named function, so for example here when I'm calling getChoice, what the code does is it runs, it jumps up to where the function is defined, runs through getChoice, and then returns back to where it left off. We talked about the fact that getChoice is a function because it returns the variable choice, and this allows choice to get a value inside the main loop. Then we moved on to set questions. Inside set questions were kind of some calls to further functions. Well, further function, which was getText, and getText did the action of both getting the question and the answer, depending on the mode that was passed into it. And what it did was return the text variable. And then set questions actually returned two values, so two lists, the list of questions, the list of answers. So again, set questions was called here and returned values. The last thing that we touched on was built-in functions, so these purple things, input, print, sum, len, bool, list, these are what are called built-in functions, and all you have to remember is that somewhere in the kind of Python standard library there are def commands that refer to how input works and how print works and how sum works. So this was an incredibly long video on functions and what's called parameter passing, so the act of passing data in, returning data out of functions. I hope it's been useful.